The 2026 Commonwealth Games in limbo after the Australian state of Victoria announced that it's pulling out of hosting the event due to budget blowouts. Senior Premier Daniel Andrews said that he had no choice as the projected cost for the Games had tripled.
Look, I've made a lot of difficult calls, a lot of very difficult decisions in this job. This is not one of them. Frankly, $6 to $7 billion for a 12-day sporting event, we are not doing that. That does not represent value for money. That is all cost and no benefit.
Australia's Commonwealth Games chief slammed the decision to dump the event, saying that it risks Victoria's standing as a sporting hub. And critics say dropping out is also a massive humiliation for Australia. There are concerns that the Games could now be cancelled. The Commonwealth Games Federation said that Victoria's decision was hugely disappointing, but insists that it's committed to finding another host. And the Games have only ever been cancelled during World War II. Ollie Barrett joins us live now from London for more on this story. Ollie, it is a disappointment for many. I mean, if they don't find another venue, all of that training by the athletes is going to go to waste. Hopefully they do find someone, but organisers are scrambling to keep this event alive. What options do they have, Ollie, and will they be able to find another host?
Very limited options indeed, Dawn. I mean, already, for example, New Zealand had been suggested as an alternative host, but New Zealand says that it won't be hosting the Games. There had been suggestions that alternative locations could be found in Australia, but that seems now very unlikely as well. Attention will immediately therefore turn to countries that have existing infrastructure in place, which would mean that preparations wouldn't be quite so complicated. The UK and Canada have been mentioned in that regard. But don't forget that the UK hosted in 2022 in Birmingham, and no sense coming out of London or any other UK city at the moment that there is anyone that particularly wants to step into the breach. So this is a very tricky one indeed for the Commonwealth Games Federation. When it comes to exactly how the last 24 hours or so have played out, there's clearly a huge amount of anger around as well. Commonwealth officials here in London say that they were effectively blindsided by this decision from Victoria officials. Commonwealth officials also dispute that number that has been put on it by the government in Victoria in terms of how much the Games were eventually going to cost. They call it a gross exaggeration. So definitely bad blood between government officials in Victoria, Commonwealth officials, Games officials here in London, and in their Australia representation as well. In terms of where we go next, very limited options at this point.
Well, you heard State Premier Daniel Andrews say that it wasn't value for money, and it does appear that fewer countries are showing interest at all to host the event, Ollie. I mean, organisers have struggled to find a host even before Victoria volunteered last April. So is the Commonwealth Games losing its relevance?
It is looking harder and harder for the Games to set out its relevance long into the future, given how difficult it is proving to find a host for 2026. But also we saw in 2022 that it wasn't easy either. We saw the South African bid effectively having to be rejected in the end because of financial irregularities. There were very limited bidders for 2022 even before that. And so when you have so little interest, it seems, in Commonwealth countries in hosting these events, you're in a very difficult spot indeed. And if 2026 has to be cancelled or postponed in some way because of the lack of a host venue, a host country or a host city, whatever it may be, you have to then say that looking further ahead to 2030 and beyond would become very tricky indeed. Clearly, Commonwealth Games Federation officials insist they will find somewhere. They insist the Games are still relevant. We've heard from Downing Street here in London today that the UK believes that the Commonwealth as an organisation is something that is very important and that the Games therefore should go ahead somewhere. But as I say, we just don't know exactly where that's going to be yet, if anywhere.
Well, let's hope the Games hasn't seen its last innings. Ollie, thank you very much for that. Ollie Barrett there in London.